What's up, Fantasy World? Welcome to another episode of Fantasy's Finest, your fantasy football podcast. This is episode 2. I am your host, Will Spencer. No Jalen this week. For this episode, he's off celebrating his 2-year anniversary with his lovely wife, Sabria. Shout out to him. Also, want to give a shout out to my friend Mike and his wife, Sabrine. They got married over the weekend. It's one of the reasons why we had to push the drop date for the podcast back. But we're going to get right into this episode. But before we jump into it, follow us across all your social media, Facebook, like us on like our page at Fantasy's Finest, Instagram and Twitter under the same handle, Fantasy's Finest. You can also check out our blog too at fantasysfinest.wordpress.com. As always, you can follow me on Twitter at IamHyperion_FPH. I had to switch it up for y'all. I know those underscores was killing y'all from my last handle, so I updated it. You can also follow Jalen at Ace_Game Time215 on Twitter as well. Please feel free to share the podcast episode, like it on whatever social media platform or podcast platform you use. Share it with your friends, share it with your league mates, use it as banter points, talk trash, whatever you got to do, but get that out there. Now, in this episode, we're finally going to get into our rankings for the 2019 fantasy football draft. We're going to start with running backs. I'm going to have Ace drop his on Twitter. He should have a free moment to do that, in between his celebrations, for his anniversary. But he'll be willing to. I'm gonna get him to drop his list. I'm gonna go through mine for this episode. What we're gonna do is we're gonna do each position, and we're gonna give our top 20. So for this episode, we're gonna do 1 through 10. And in our next episode, we're going to do 11 through 20, and we're going to keep going until we finish in each position. But before we get into that, let's look around the NFL and see what's going on for the news. Cowboys running back Ezekiel Elliott was detained and then released after a confrontation with event security staff at the EDC in Las Vegas. TMZ dropped a video about the incident. Shows him arguing with a woman who's presumed to be his girlfriend. Security staff got involved. In the encounter, the video shows the encounter between the staffer and Ezekiel Elliott. To me, I think it's a big flop. I don't think that there will be much coming from it as far as suspension from the league. It looks like a big misunderstanding. The Ezekiel Elliott's lawyer and Stephen Jones have spoken out about it, stating the same thing, that it was a big misunderstanding and that they don't think that the league will get involved as far as discipline. Um, it, Ezekiel Elliott does need to be smarter in situations like this, so that he doesn't get into trouble, because everyone is watching him now. But as far as fantasy is concerned, I'm not concerned about it. I don't think the league overall is concerned about it. They'll probably talk to him at the most, like, yo, you need to pay attention and be more careful about what you do and stop finding yourself in situations like these. But I don't think there's anything that'll come from it. In other news, Ben Roethlisberger admits that he was too hard in criticizing Antonio Brown, saying, "I'm truly sorry, and genuinely sorry about the situation." AB responded via Twitter, calling Ben two-faced. Antonio Brown is fed up with Ben and the Pittsburgh Steelers organization, particularly, Ben Roethlisberger for coming at him last season. It's a circus right now. So anything in regards to Ben Roethlisberger, the Steelers, or them mentioning Antonio Brown is just probably going to end up in the same way. The Patriots extended Julian Edelman for 2 years, giving him a 2-year extension worth $19 million with an $8 million signing bonus. That's pretty solid for a slot receiver in New England, but that's Tom Brady's boy. I expect to see him dominate in that slot role as the Patriots offense looks to change from the style of play that they had last year, with Rob Gronkowski as one of the feature pieces, The way that they brought in a lot of wide receivers in this offseason kind of tells you that they may be going in a different direction. What direction that is, we probably won't be able to find out until we get closer to the season. Washington Redskins running back Darius Geis is a full go for training camp. He tore his ACL last year. Earlier reports about Darius Geis were that he was coming along a little slowly in terms of his recovery, but it seems like all is well. And heading into training camp, he will have no limitations. And speaking of no limitations, Carson Wentz will have no limitations heading into training camp and OTAs uh, in this coming season. It's particularly good to see a player like that come back from injury. He's had to deal with back and knee issues, so it's good for the Philadelphia Eagles in particular to have their starting quarterback come into OTAs with no limits. He will participate in 7-on-7 drills, and he'll be able to do a lot more as they head into training camp. But that'll wrap it up for our news segment. Now let's get into the good stuff. We'll be getting into our rankings for the 2019 fantasy football draft. Like I said before, we're going to start with our running backs. So let's get started. All right, now it's time for us to get into our 2019 fantasy football draft rankings. Like I said before, we're going to get into the running backs first, and then we'll proceed and go, wide receiver, quarterback, tight end, through the course of our episodes. And we're going to give you our top 20. Today's episode again will be 1 through 10, and our next episode will be 11 through 20, and we'll go on like that. Now, if you're new to fantasy football, you may be wondering, well, this is my first draft. I know a couple of big names, but why should I go for these guys? What running back should I go for in the later rounds? What am I looking for when I'm drafting fantasy players? Now, from my experience, a couple of things rather, that I've looked for when drafting any player, especially running back, is how many carries are they getting? Is the running back that I'm picking, is he versatile? Meaning, can he run out of the backfield and catch? Because depending on what league you're in, what the settings are, you get more points for a running back that can catch out of the backfield in PPR formats than you do in standard. You still get the passing points, but you get the added bonus of the catches that they make in PPR. uh, how do they look in the red zone? Are they getting those looks in the red zone? Are they getting those touches when the offense gets under the 20-yard line or closer to the goal line? Are they getting those looks? Are they injured a lot? The worst thing that you can have is an injury-prone running back, and picking them in the wrong spot gets more risky than it would be picking an injury-prone running back in the later rounds. Are there any changes to the offense? They draft new players. Is the offensive coordinator going from a run heavy type of offense to a passing offense? These are some of the things you might need to look at, and it may seem a little bit overwhelming at first, but believe me, as you get more experience in the draft, start paying attention to some of the off-season news, it's not as complicated and overwhelming as it might seem. So let's get into my rankings. We already gave you, me and Jalen already gave you our top three last week at the end of episode one. Mine's I'm going to give you mine's a reminder. My top three were Ezekiel Elliott, Saquon Barkley, and Christian McCaffrey. Now, the reason why I picked these guys to be in my top three and to be in my top 10 list to start it off is because of a few things. When you look at these three guys, Ezekiel Elliott, particularly Ezekiel Elliott and Saquon Barkley, those guys are going to get the most touches out of all the running backs that are in their group. They're going to get the most touches for the team. They are one of the focal points in that offense. So you don't really have to worry about, is Ezekiel Elliott going to get all these? Is he going to get enough touches to warrant picking him in the top five running backs? Same thing for Saquon Barkley. These guys are going to get the workloads. These are guys going to get the heavy workload. As far as Christian McCaffrey, he proved last season that he can carry workload for Carolina Panthers, and he's put on weight. But I'm gonna break down each one as to reason why I have these guys where I have them. Uh, Now, like I said, Ezekiel Elliott is my number one running back out the gate. A lot of people have uh, asked me, like, well, why not Todd Gurley? Well, we understand that Todd Gurley is still going through some things with his knee. He's a bit too risky for me to draft him that high, so I wouldn't bother taking him. If I'm going to use my first round pick, my first overall draft pick, I'm going to get somebody that I know that is going to get the workload to compensate drafting that person set that high. Now I know Ace Jalen told me last week that I shouldn't take Ezekiel Elliott number one. You know that's too high. He's not getting enough touches in the red zone. He's not scoring enough touchdowns. The reason why I have Ezekiel Elliott at high at number one, he had the most carries last season at 304, and that ranked number one among running backs in the NFL. That's a good start. Number two, he had 95 targets, which ranked fifth among running backs. He finished in the top five last year in both PPR and standard league scoring. Another factor that bodes well for him is that he had 51 red zone touches last year, which ranks fifth among running backs. Now, while he didn't translate a lot of those into touchdowns, he had six on the ground and I think three passing. I think that's going to change for him coming into the 2019 season. The reason being is because they're getting a new offensive coordinator in Kellen Moore. Scott Linehan isn't there anymore. Jerry hasn't extended Jason Garrett. These Some of these things are a little bit intangible, so just bear with me. These things are going to factor in how Ezekiel Elliott is used in offense. He is the driving force in that offense on the ground. He is one of the focal points in the Dallas Cowboys offense. And because of the fact that he didn't translate a lot of those red zone touches into touchdowns, um, they're going to make sure that he gets in the end zone as one of those big offensive pieces. The offensive line is coming back together. Travis Frederick is healthy. There's a lot of things that are molding into that way that will make Ezekiel Elliott worth that number one overall pick. I have Saquon Barkley at number two. He had 87.9 snaps, snap shares last year, was ranked fourth, which means he's going to, and I expect that number to go up. He's going to be the focal point in the Giants' offense on the ground and in the passing game. Eli is getting older. The wide receivers aren't as good as they used to be without Odell Beckham there now that he's in Cleveland. Saquon Barkley is going to be relied on heavily this year. He had 261 carries last year, which ranked second among running backs. 121 targets, which ranked third among running backs. And he ranked third in red zone targets with 61. Now, the only reason that I don't have Saquon ranked over Ezekiel Elliott is because I think that coming into the 2019 season, Saquon is going to see a little bit more of the opposing defense as opposed to how Ezekiel Elliott may see it. I think Saquon is going to see a little bit more loaded boxes because you don't have Odell Beckham there anymore to ward off guys because he can beat you so many ways. You have Sterling Shepard and Golden Tate. Both of those guys are relatively slot receivers. You have Evan Ingram, who I think is going to be very good this year because the targets are going to have to be disseminated amongst the other wide receivers. But I think Saquon is going to have a little bit more adversity this year. Offensive line is not that good. Eli, he can be skittish at times, and when you have those things work against the running back like they do, I don't think Saquon is going to have as great a year as he could have. He's still going to be picked very high. I don't have him falling out of the top three. I think that the number two spot warrants him a little bit better because of the possibility of him seeing more of the defense than the rest of the running backs on the list going down. Number three, Christian McCaffrey. One thing I like about Christian McCaffrey is his versatility. I think he's going to get more carries this season, he could threaten to end up as a top two, 2 or 3 running back because of the amount of uses that he has in the offense. He had 261 carries last year, which ranked second. He ranked fourth in red zone targets with 60. So he was just one behind Saquon Barkley. He actually had 124 targets, which ranked first. So Christian McCaffrey is he basically is a short passing game and running game for the Carolina Panthers. There's no real back behind him. They drafted Jordan Scarlett. I think he was later on in the draft, I think around 5 or 6. So he's not really much of a threat to Christian McCaffrey's workload. Behind uh, Christian McCaffrey is just a Curtis Artis Payne. He's not really that much of a threat to take away snaps from Christian McCaffrey. So, he's a solid three if Saquon and Ezekiel Elliott are off the board. That's who you should target next, just based off of the amount of uses that he's going to get in that offense. Coming in at number 4, I have Alvin Kamara. Now, I can see why some people would want Alvin Kamara to get a little bit higher on a top 10 ranking. The thing about it is, Alvin Kamara still has someone behind him that's going to take snaps away from him. Now, I'll give you some of the numbers he had last year. He had 66.3% snap shares, which ranked 12th. Now, when I say snap shares, I've said it a lot. I've said it quite a bit so far in this podcast. What that means is that this is the amount of carries he's getting amongst the group of running backs that they have for that team and how it's ranked against other running back groups. Alvin Kamara is still going to be splitting a bit of the workload with Latavius Murray. Latavius Murray is going to have that Mark Ingram role. Now, I will say this. I think that Alvin Kamara is going to be a little bit more lethal in the passing game as opposed to the running game. Meaning, Latavius Murray isn't really a threat as a passer as he is as a runner. Alvin Kamara can do both. They're not going to run Alvin Kamara into the ground through the course of a 16-game season when they have Latavius Murray there. So Latavius Murray is going to get some of the workload on the ground. They're going to be versatile in their usage with Alvin Kamara, using him in the run game and then using him in the passing game. And I think he'll get a little bit more of a share than he did last year, but it won't be enough to make him significantly higher in the ranking. Now, I get that he scores. He does score for the New Orleans Saints offense. He's pretty good at it. He had 72 red zone touches, which ranked second. He only had 194 carries last year, which ranked 16th. He had 104 targets, which ranked him fourth. He did finish pretty well in last year's fantasy season. He finished fourth in PPR standard league. The only thing about him is that you gotta expect the Saints. They want to keep him fresh, so he's going to be sharing the workload a little bit in that offense. Coming in at number 5, I have Todd Gurley. The only reason I have Todd Gurley that low is because we just don't know what's going on with his knee. There have been reports about he's doing fine, and people close to him are saying that the knee's not to be worried about. But everything that the Los Angeles Rams have done kind of speaks in contrary to that. They went out and they re-signed Malcolm Brown. They drafted Darrell Henderson. The Rams, Sean McVay, has said, oh, Gurley is good. There's nothing to worry about. He's going to be fine. He's still the focal point in our offense. When you do things like this, bringing in extra help, all the treatments that are reported that Todd Gurley has to go through, as far as stem cell injections, it's just a lot. It's just a lot of guessing around that knee. Until there's more concrete information about that knee, I can't really justify moving him up my ranking to a higher spot outside of 5. Now, if I'm picking 5th or 6th or 7th in a fantasy draft, I'm not letting Todd Gurley slide by me. What I'll end up doing, and this is a strategy for me, what I would end up doing is I would take Todd Gurley and either draft running back heavy just to compensate in the event that Todd Gurley does go down, or I grab Todd Gurley and then make sure that I grab Darrell Henderson as his handcuff. That way, either way, I'm secure in having one of the best running backs in the league, still remain the focal point in the Rams offense. And in the event that he does go down, I still have his handcuff. Now, I'll give you some of Todd Gurley's numbers from last year, too. Todd Gurley had 256 carries. He ranked him fourth among running backs. 81 targets, which ranked seventh. And then 73 red zone touches, which ranked first. So you see how productive Todd Gurley can be when he's healthy and when he's still the focal point in that Rams offense. He finished third in PPR and first in standard league scoring. That's pretty good for a running back. He's been dynamic the last couple of seasons. It's unfortunate that he has to go through this knee injury stuff right now, but he's still a bit of a risk. The talent is too big to ignore. That's why I have him at fifth. Coming in at number six is David Johnson from Arizona. David Johnson had a pretty bad year last year. Just watching his games, it didn't look like he was being used enough. The offense altogether just looked discombobulated. Despite that, he still finished ninth in PPR scoring and 10th in standard league. So he still managed to finish as a top 10 running back. He had 258 carries, which ranked third, 76 targets, which ranked 11th. He had 35 red zone targets, which ranked 15th. Now, that's the number that I want to see go up. The assumption is that he'll be used more in a new head coach for the Arizona Cardinals. His air raid offense is welcoming to a running back with the skill set that David Johnson has. Johnson is versatile enough that he can be used as a runner and a passer. So I expect those red zone targets to be going up this season. I want him to be able to finish higher amongst running backs because he's a guy that has the talent. He just needs to be used right. I don't think he was used too well last year under the old guard. With those changes to the offense, that's why I have David Johnson locked in at number six. And then number seven is Melvin Gordon. I like Melvin Gordon. I want to rank him a little bit higher, but he gets dinged up at the wrong time. Like last year, he got dinged up right before playoffs started. I was on a roll. Melvin Gordon missed, I believe he missed like 2 or 3 games. And it was just like, man, he that Melvin Gordon is a huge part of what the Chargers like to do on the ground and in the passing game. He benefited a lot from the amount of usage that he had. He had 175 carries, which ranked 20th, because he was sharing it, because of the time he missed, because of injury, and them using Austin Eckler in that offense as well. 66 targets, was ranked 15th. 33 red zone touches, which ranked 16th. Now he did finish sixth in standard scoring and eighth in PPR scoring. And another notch to Melvin Gordon was that he was averaging almost 22 points a game last year, which ranked fifth among running backs. Melvin Gordon is a steady running back. He kills in PPR. He just does a lot of things on the ground and in the air. It's just a matter of him being healthy. You never know when Melvin Gordon is going to go down. I believe he only has like one season where he played all 16 games. He doesn't miss a lot of time. He's only missed about 3 or 4 games a season, if that. But, again, because of the injury risk, I got him. That's a nice spot to get Melvin Gordon at number seven. At number eight, I have Le'Veon Bell. We just don't know what Le'Veon Bell is going to do in this offense led by Adam Gase. In the beginning of the season, I was fine with having a Le'Veon Bell a little higher, but Adam Gase scares me. And I know what you guys thinking, like, there's no one better than Le'Veon Bell on that team. Yeah, that's true. They got a lot. They got a couple guys back there that could sneakily sneak away some carries and targets away from Le'Veon Bell, especially when you consider how Adam Gase used Ian Drake last year, and when they had old man Frank Gore and Kellen Balaj there, Ian Drake wasn't getting any work. He was rarely getting any work, and he's one of the youngest guys there outside of Kalen Balaj, who was a rookie. You have Montgomery there. You have Elijah McGuire, who was there from last year. Those are some guys that are pretty good in both the running and passing game. Ty Montgomery is a guy, he's more of a receiving threat. but he can't stay healthy. So I don't know how much they plan on using him. But in Adam Gase's wacky world, if he decides that, you know what, I'm not going to give Le'Veon Bell all these carries, they could be disseminated amongst the other two guys. I'm a little leery of that. You saw how what happened when Adam Gase was in Miami, how that whole thing shook up when they had three running backs. I just have a bad feeling about that. I can't put Le'Veon Bell any lower because you know how talented he is. His last year in Pittsburgh before he moved over to the Jets, and after that year off, in 2017 he had 321 carries, which ranked first among running backs that year. 106 targets, which ranked second. 73 red zone touches, which ranked first. You know, he finished second in PPR and standard scoring. Le'Veon Bell is a problem. He has to be used the correct way. He has to get those carries. He has to get those targets. He has to be used well in the red zone. Adam Gase, mm, I don't know. That's just a big factor for me. So I'm gonna keep Le'Veon Bell at 8. I'm not gonna touch him until you know maybe in camp they'll be like, you know what, Le'Veon Bell is our guy, and he's gonna get this and that. That might make me change my mind, but I'm gonna leave him at 8 for now. Coming in at number 9, you have James Conner, who did well in replacing Le'Veon Bell last season when he went on hiatus the whole year. James Conner is a guy who I like going forward. I think he can actually do well. He only played 13 games last year. I think if he was able to play those games, his numbers would be even better than they were than he ended now. He finished sixth last year in PPR, seventh in standard scoring. He had 215 carries, which ranked 11th, so he was just outside top 10 in carries last year among running backs. He had 71 targets, which ranked 13th. He had 40 red zone touches, which ranked ninth. He averaged about 221 fantasy points per game. So James Conner could face a little adversity too. Offensive line is still good, but you don't have the threat of Antonio Brown there anymore. But I like Juju Smith-Schuster, and I like the rookie that they brought in Deontay Johnson. He could be a sneaky good problem coming in. They have James Washington. They have Dante Moncrief. But they have some guys that can catch the ball. Also, like Vance McDonald, I think he's going to be a little bit more active in the passing game. And those things, along with Roethlisberger being consistent, those things should help James Conner continue to be a potential threat on the ground for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Coming in at number 10, I have Nick Chubb. Now, a lot of people are leery of Nick Chubb because Kareem Hunt is there, but he has to come back from suspension. My thing about that is, I think that Kareem Hunt is going to get dealt by the time he comes back from suspension, which I believe is around the same time as the trade deadline. If I'm as savvy as the Cleveland Browns have been this offseason, I flip Kareem Hunt for either draft picks or maybe another player, defensive player that may help me out. I don't know what they would be looking for, but Kareem Hunt is a starting level running back. After his suspension, there's got to be a team or two that would need a running back that's as good as Kareem Hunt. One place I would think of is the Houston Texans. Yeah, they have Lamar Miller, but he's coming into his final year, his contract. Deontay Foreman, who I do like as a sleeper, but he just hasn't had the opportunity to take over that role. So, what better way to get an offensive piece as big as Kareem Hunt, making some kind of trade to get Kareem Hunt to the Houston Texans? That's just an example. But I like Nick Chubb's value this year. A lot of people sound like, you know, based off of who I've talked to on Twitter and amongst my circle of friends, it just seemed like they're a little leery of Nick Chubb. I'm all for it. If I can get him in round two, or if I can get him in round two or late in round two, I'm taking him because I'm not worried. There's nobody that's going to get anywhere close to the amount of snaps that he's going to get. They still have Duke Johnson there. That's another reason why I think they may try and flip Kareem Hunt later on in the season. They didn't get rid of Duke Johnson for a reason. They really want to keep him as their passing down back, keep Nick Chubb as the ground up pound guy and the goal line guy. They can draft another running back next year if they want to. To keep Kareem Hunt just to make him a passing down back when you already drafted Nick Chubb the year before, that doesn't add up to me. Now you can give me your opinion when you after you hear this episode, and let me know what you think about this particular running back Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt's value with the team. But I think Nick Chubb is going to be pretty solid this year. He's going to get a lot of the attempts. He can be used in the passing game. He wasn't used much last year. He only had 29 targets, which ranked him 40th among running backs. Remember, too, his numbers are a little bit lower, but he still managed to finish. He still managed to average 12.2 fantasy points per game last year. He had 30 red zone touches, which ranked him for 23rd. And he had 192 carries. He could have had more, but he was still spending time with Carlos Hyde before they shipped him out of here. Nick Chubb is going to be interesting to watch. I would definitely keep an eye on him going through the offseason and make sure that there aren't any more changes to that offense. That is it for my top 10 list for my running backs, my early rankings for my fantasy football 2019 draft. Let's recap real quick. We have at number 1 Ezekiel Elliott, number 2 Saquon Barkley, number 3 Christian McCaffrey, number 4 Alvin Kamara, number 5 Todd Gurley, number 6 David Johnson, number 7 Melvin Gordon, number 8 Le'Veon Bell, number 9 James Conner, and number 10 Nick Chubb. So if you think that any of these guys should be moved up or down, let me know. I'm open for discussion. I'm not above it all. If you want to debate, let's get it. All you got to do is hit me up. Follow me on Twitter at I am Hyperion_FPH. Send me a message, man, so we can talk. Other than that, we will be back for episode 3. I'll be sure to have Jalen on this one so that we can debate a little bit more through our 11 through 20. And I hope to hear from you guys. Please remember to share the podcast. Share it with your friends. Share it with your family. Share it with your league mates. Let us know how we did. We'll be back for episode 3. You guys take it easy.